Hello everyone. Let's begin with the next task number 37. Here, this is basically to print prime numbers between two numbers entered by the user, but with the help of functions. Okay, so let's try this. So now, as the program, as the aim says, the user will be entering two numbers, and we have to print all the numbers, all the prime numbers between them. Okay, so now as soon as we read the aim, we understand that for what part we should make the function. Okay, so one thing to remember always is function is to be made to help in finding out repetitive task. Okay, so basically whenever something has to be repeated again and again, that is where you create a function for it. Like for example, the in this case, we have to check whether a number is prime or not, right? So if it is if it has to be checked only once, then we need not create a function, right? But in this case, the user is going to enter two numbers. So let's say a user enters 50 and the second number is 100. Okay, so 50 to 100, there are many prime numbers, right? So let's say there are around 10 prime numbers. Then that means this logic of prime numbers has to be run for 10 times, right? So in that case, it is always a good idea to create a function for that repetitive logic and just call that function inside main. Okay, so let us start. Okay, so let us first write the skeleton. Okay, so user is going to enter two numbers, right? So let's say we call it start and end. Okay, so two numbers the user is going to enter. Then let me just do a printf prime number finder. Okay, then after that I will do a scanf %d start, and here I would, let's say, enter start. Okay, so I am just giving a hint to the user what they have to enter, right? Similarly, I will do it for end. And again, always remember, whenever it's scanf, you have to put ampersand sign. Okay, so once this is done, my input part is done, right? So now it's time to use a for loop to run from start till the end and check each and every number if it is prime or not. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so we need a for loop, right? And for loop to work, I should have a counter variable, right? So let's take I as the counter variable. Let's initialize I equal to, now since it has to start from start, right? So I should start at start, then it should end up till end, right? So it has to include end, right? So I will do I less than or equal to end, and then in every iteration I will increment it by 1. Okay, so that is my loop. So my loop is ready, right? So now I want to just run the function that I'm going to create. Okay, so inside this I will be the numbers one by one. Okay, after every iteration this number is going to change I. So what I have to do is I just have to write a function called, let's say, check prime, okay, and give that number as the input. Okay, so I'm taking this function. I'm going to define this function and give I as the input. So this function should check whether it is a prime number or not, and if it's a prime number, then it should print it is prime, okay, or it should print that number, right? So now it can be done in multiple ways. So since in the last task we have seen as the void return type, okay, so this time I will show you a different way, okay. So in this particular program, what I'm going to do is this designing of the function is completely based on you, okay. So basically the programmer can decide how you want to design the program, right? So right now what I am thinking is, let this function return true or false, okay. So basically it will return 1 or 0. If it is 1, means that particular number, that is I, is a prime number. If it is 0, that means it is not a prime number, right? So that means this is going to return either 1 or a 0, right? So that is very important. So this function, this function is going to return a value 1 or a 0, okay. So we will come back over here, right? I'll just write to do over here, right, just to remind me that I have to complete this. This is incomplete right now, okay. So let's come back after we define the function, okay. So let's define the function first, okay. So now, as we have already decided, it is going to return something. It is going to return either 1 or a 0, okay, and 1 and 0 both are integer value, right? So I will do a integer return type. Name of the function is check prime, right, and it is expecting one parameter. That parameter is integer, right, integer, and you can name it anything, okay. So here one thing to remember is, whatever variable name by which you call need not be same as this, okay. If you want, you may even call it as I, it doesn't matter, because I have already explained in the last task that these variables are auto variables, okay. So these are exist inside this function only, right? So I over here and I over here are different, right? So you can use it over here. So just to avoid confusion, let's take a as the variable, right? So what happens is, when I call check prime, this I value will be assigned to a, okay. So once that is done, now I have access to that function, right? So now I have to write the logic of prime function, how to find whether a number is prime or not over here, okay. So we have done this already in tasks in the last I think around 10 or 15th task it was, to find out whether the number is prime or not, right? So let's do it over here. So to check whether the number is prime or not, I need to have a for loop. Basically prime number is nothing but that number should not be divisible by any other number except 1 and the number itself, right? So that's why I will have a variable, let's say int I, okay. Let's take a variable int I, and I will be equal to, I will start from 2, okay, because 1 is always divisible, right? So I am skipping 1. I will start from 2 and go up till I less than a. So a is my number, right? So I will go less than a, okay. A, so that means it will go up till a minus 1. So it is going from 2 to a minus 1, okay, because it is less than. If it would have been less than equal to, then it will go up till a, right? Then I will do I plus plus, right? So this is going to run now, and I have to do only one thing. I have to check if I divide if I take a remainder of a with I. Okay, so a divide by I and find out the remainder, that means modulus. Okay, so if I take the remainder of a divided by I, and if it is equal to 0, that means it is divisible by I. Okay, and as we have already seen, prime numbers are not divisible, right? That means this particular number is not divisible. If it is not divisible, I have to return 0, right? So I will just write return 0, and that's it. So that my function is run. Okay, so if it is prime number, so that means it will not be divisible by any number, right? So all these numbers from 2 to a minus 1, it will not be divisible, right? So this return 0 will never execute. So after finishing the for loop, that is after this, I can write return 1. Okay, so now that means if it is a prime number, okay, let's say for example if I pass 5, so 5 is a prime number. So when it comes over here, it will try to divide from 2 to 4, right? So that means 2, 3 and 4. And if you try to divide, nothing none of the numbers will be able to divide 5, right? So that means this particular statement never executes. That means this will be returned, that means 1 will be returned. So if when 1 is returned, that means it is a prime number, right? So let's say if it is 6, right? So if I do 6 mod 2, it is equal to 0, that means directly return 0 will be executed. Okay, and after 2 nothing will run, because once return comes, this program this function exits. Okay, so that means all the other loop will not proceed. Okay, so after 2 only it will exit. Okay, so next, once our function is ready, we can come back to our main program, right? So in the main function, we have called this function, but we are going to since we know that this is going to be a function which is going to return 1 or a 0. Okay, 1 means true, 0 means false, right? So I'm just going to do if, I'm going to directly do a if statement over here and an else statement over here, right? So if check prime is true, okay, so if it is true, that means if it returns 1, then that means the number is prime. Okay, so I will simply print I can either print prime, but my aim is to find all the numbers which are prime, right? So I will simply print %d and I. Okay, so that will print the number, and in the else I need not print anything. So this block is not required, because I'm not going to print the numbers which are not prime. Okay, so this block need not be there. Okay, so that is our program. Let's try to run it and see if there is any error. So let's start from 20, the start number, and up till 50. How many numbers are there? So there is 23, 29, 31, 37, 41, 43 and 47. Okay, so you have seen how we have used functions to find out the prime numbers, right? Now here one thing to remember is this this type of function, we have used arguments to take input, and we are also used return type to return input, right? So this is very important. So this is just to show you how functions input and output in functions work, right? I hope you have understood this task. I will see you in the next task.